Kshetra translation today?
Today, no need.
No need. You're
It's for now,
liberated.
maybe later, who knows.
You're liberated. Okay. Otherwise, everyone's okay with English? I hope. Okay, thank you all for coming. We're continuing our discussion of Chaitanya Charitamrita as an overview, a whirlwind, a turbo overview, high-speed overview. And we're coming toward the end of our journey through the Adi Lila, Madhya Lila, and Antya Lila. I think I can get rid of. Oops, that didn't work. We'll come. Oops. Right next. Okay, now I get it. Yeah, so we're coming toward the end. We have Antya Lila. Antya means end or ending. The final pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya appeared in this world for altogether 48 years. And there's a kind of even division of his life. The first 24 years was leading up to taking sannyas order, and then the second half, the second 24 years, as a sannyasi in Puri, then traveling, then back to Puri, then to Vrindavan, then back to Puri, and then the final years, as I understand, a 12-year period he remained in Puri, and especially during this time, he focuses on the in-reach, so to speak. We spoke something about this. There was outreach and there was in-reach. And his in-reach is portrayed, is represented by Krishnadas Kaviraj in many verses of chapters 14 through 19. One could include chapter 20, the final chapter, because he is he's teaching, but he's also very much absorbed in Krishna Bhavanamrita. Srila Prabhupada translated the expression Krishna Bhavanamrita as Krishna consciousness. That's what that comes from, Krishna Bhavana Amrita, the nectar of the bhava, the emotions of Krishna Bhakti. That's where that comes from. And it's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who is showing the highest, the very highest degree of such Bhavanamrita. When Srila Prabhupada was first coming to the West, he came on a ship from Kolkata. It stopped in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and then went further west through the Suez Canal, through the Mediterranean Sea and across the Atlantic, and landed in Boston first and then New York. And Prabhupada kept a diary during the 3 weeks journey. And he mentions in his diary that his consolation is what kept him inspired during this journey was to read Chaitanya Charita. Of course, he was reading the original Bengali, his own native language. So we're coming now to, we hardly touched on the first two of these, appreciation and correction. We did discuss briefly some of the episodes. This section of 13 chapters has so many different interactions with devotees. It's a very special treasure for devotees to get the sense of being very close to Lord Chaitanya in his sort of daily interactions, how he interacted with others. So the first two are these interactions, and the second half, intoxication, instruction. In a sense, you could say it's his giving up of those interactions, not entirely, but engaging more in the inner interactions, the interactions with Krishna in deep absorption, but with the assistance, frequent assistance of certain devotees, especially Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, who would inspire him, spark, it would prompt him, especially by quoting verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially from the 10th canto, especially from Krishna's interactions with the gopis. So this is all very exalted subject, and I don't remember where it is, but Krishnadas Kaviraj at one point he indicates that he's just going to go ahead and write even if no one understands what he's writing. And at one place he says, it's okay if they don't understand. In fact, I am happy if they don't understand. If the non-devotees don't understand, that's okay. That's good. So, if we now go to our other little diagram. considerations. We have these different sort of categories of types of persons that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is interacting with, closer to him, further away from him, expressed in terms of concentric circles. So now we could perhaps imagine now that this two-dimensional diagram is, instead of 2 dimensions, it's 3 dimensions. It's a yantra, which is like a mountain. Sometimes you can see they make 3-dimensional yantras. So here we have like a 3-dimensional yantra, and on top of this yantra, the peak, the pinnacle, that's where Lord Chaitanya is, with his very close associates. Or you could invert it and say the depth, the deepest part, is where Lord Chaitanya is now. High or deep, whatever. So he's kind of leaving behind these social considerations, and he's entering into the depths of his being as Radha and Krishna. But it's interesting that in these depths he interacts with certain persons, but also he interacts with this outermost ring, animals, plants, objects, and substances. In particular, in Puri, he runs to Chataka Parvat. This is a sand dune. It's a large sand dune, still there. Thinking it is Govardhan. Thinking it is Govardhan. He dives into the ocean, thinking it is the Yamuna. So these are physical substances. A mountain of sand, seawater. But his most intense emotions are evoked by these physical substances. So it's interesting. On the one hand, the physical substances or animals, plants, trees are the most distant. We generally don't see ourselves relating in personal ways with trees, and of course people have their pet animals, but they're kind of distant from the human universe, you can say. But for Lord Chaitanya, they become objects that are no longer objects. They are substance of Krishna. They embody something of Krishna. Okay, so then we can go to Chaitanya Charitamrita. Can everyone see this? Okay, I'm jumping into chapter 14, verse 40 of Antilila, where it's a beginning of a description of this intensity of Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's bhava. Ratri hoile sharupa ramanande maya apana manera bhav kohe ugariya. At night, Lord Chaitanya would reveal to Sharup Damodar and Ramananda Rai the ecstatic feelings of his mind. Prapta pranashta chittavitta atma yaya vishado chitta dehageya grihita kapalika dharma kome vrindavanam sendriya shishya vrinda. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, at first, my mind somehow achieved the treasure of Krishna. But it again lost him. Therefore, it gave up my body and home because of lamentation and accepted the religious principles of a Kapalika yogi. Then my mind went to Vrindavan with its disciples, my senses. So there's some play here, it's making an extended metaphor. The mind is being described as a yogi. What sort of yogi? A Kapalika, which these are the yogis who go around with a begging bowl consisting of the half of a skull of a human body. Yes, they're Kapalika yogis. They're quite strange people. So he says, my mind became like that and went to Vrindavan along with its disciples, my senses. And now I think there will be a series of verses in this different meter. Krishnadas Kaviraj uses, for Bengali verses, he uses two types of meters throughout. Most are in what are called, I think it's called Payar meter, Payar. Like Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakti. That's Payar meter. And the other meter is this one, which is, I believe, called Tripadi, having 3 feet, Tripadi. And this is the meter of our Guru Puja song from Narottam Das Thakur. Praptaratna haraya taraguna sannariya Mahaprabhu Santape Vivaha Raya Sharupera Kantadani Raya Sharupera Kantadani Kahe Kaha Hari Hari Darja Gela Haila Chapa Having lost his acquired gem, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with lamentation by remembering its attributes. Then, grasping the necks of Ramananda Rai and Sarup Damodar Swami, he cried, "Alas, where is my Lord Hari? Where is Hari?" Finally, he became restless and lost all patience. So this is very much typical in a sense, and it's embodying a very key principle of Gaudiya Vaishnava theology, which is that it's not that we claim to meet Krishna, it's much more that we long to meet Krishna, that Krishna is absent. And the feeling of his absence, viraha, is the source of, on the one side it says here lamentation, but in fact on the deeper level is of the greatest joy. In a sort of paradoxical way. where is my Lord? He Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite He Nanda Suno Kuta Shri Govardhana Kalakar Patali. What is it? Shri Govardhana Kalakatali. No, mixing verses. He Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite He Nanda Suno Gosantavi. Anyway. Gosantaviti Sarvato Japuri Ke Der Mahavivalo Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuvigo Shri Jiva Gopalako. What were the 6 Goswamis doing? They were wandering around Vrindavan, calling out, "O Radha, where are you? Hey Radhe, Rajadevi, Chalalite, and where is Lalita?" So that mode of absence is the kind of essential principle of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in contrast to, again, we talked about the Vallabha Sampradaya. In the Vallabha tradition, there's no, to my knowledge, there's no talk about absence of Krishna. No, Krishna is always present. No problem. Also in the Nimbarka tradition, Krishna is, they say there's no question of separation. Philosophically, they're absolutely correct. But in terms of devotional emotion, something the Vaishnavas would say, something the Gaudiyas would say, something is missing. Shuno bandava Krishnera madhuri Jaranove Moraman Chadiloka Veda Dharma Jogi Anya Hoiva Vikari. My dear friends, he said, please hear of Krishna's sweetness. Because of a great desire for that sweetness, my mind has given up all social and Vedic religious principles and taken to the profession of begging. Jogi Hoya, exactly like a mystic yogi. Bhikkhari, Bhiksha is begging. And Loka Veda Dharma. Chadi, the apostrophe after the I indicates the Y, the long A in our transliteration system. So Chadiya, having given up the Dharma of the Vedas and the Dharmas of this world, I've become a yogi and I just go begging. Krishna Lila Mandala Shuddha Shankha Kundala Gadiyache Shukka Karikara She Kundala Kane Pari Krishna Lahu Thali Dhari Asha Jhuri Kandera Upara. The ring of Krishna's Rasa Lila, manufactured by Shukadeva Goswami, the most auspicious craftsman, is as pure as an earring made from a conch shell. The yogi of my mind is wearing that earring upon his ear. From a gourd he has carved out the bowl of my aspirations, and he has taken the bag of my expectations on his shoulder. So he's taking this idea of the yogi and he's unpacking it in a figurative, in a metaphorical way. And this is very rich. He says that Shukadeva Goswami is a jeweler. Gadiyache Shukka Karikara. Shukadeva Goswami, how is he a jeweler? Because he has very expertly shaped through his speech, through his language. He has shaped the ring, the mandala, which is the rasanins described in 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. 5 chapters. Who knows which 5 chapters those are? Anyone know the numbers? Chapters 29 through 33. It's sometimes called the Rasa Panchadhyaya. Adhyaya means chapter, Pancha means 5, Rasa means rasa. Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters of the Rasa Lila. So he's now saying Shukadev is like a jeweler, and with his language he has so beautifully presented these 5 chapters. And of course it's a kind of double play, because what is the rasa dance? It's a dance in a circle. So a circle is a ring, and he's saying he has fashioned this very nice ring, and I'm a yogi, or my mind is a yogi. And what is a yogi? These Kapalika yogis, apparently they would wear one conch shell ring in their ear. So he's saying, I'm a yogi, and I'm wearing this ring. Which ring? The ring that was fashioned by Shukadeva Goswami. In other words, he's always hearing the description of Krishna's most exalted activity, the Rasa Lila. And then he says, I have a bowl, because yogis would carry a begging bowl, apparently not a skull. This time it's lau, squash or gourd. Thali is translated as bowl. And he has a jhuli. A jhuli is a bag. And what is this bag? It's the bag of his asha, his expectations. And the gourd, the bowl, is the bowl, the lau, of his aspiration, Krishna. Krishna means thirst. In the Buddhist system, the 4 so-called noble truths. The first is dukkha. This world is dukkha. The second is Krishna. Why is it dukkha? Because we are Krishna, because we have thirst, we have longing, we have desire. The third is nirvana. It is possible to become free from Krishna, etc. And how? Marga, by following a path. Which path? The Eightfold Path of the Buddhists. But Lord Chaitanya, he's carrying his Krishna as a yogi. He's not trying to get rid of his Krishna. He's begging. What is he begging for? He's begging for the alms of Krishna Bhakti. Chintakanta uligai juli vibhuti malinathai ha Krishna pralapa uttara udvega dvadashahate lobera julani mate vikavave kine kolevara. In Bengali, the ksha is pronounced ka. So viksha becomes vikka, kshina becomes kina. It's like a double-K-H. The yogi of my mind wears the torn quilt of anxiety on his dirty body. Chinta kanta. Kanta is, it's a quilt, which means it's taking rags, just pieces of rejected cloth, and sewing them together. The six Goswamis again is in that verse. Tyaktva tornamasesha mandala gatishenim sadatucha Bhutva dina ganeshiko karunaya kopina kanta ashrita Gopi bhavana samritam dilahari kala kalola magnamhur bande rupa sanatano prabhugo shijiva go pala ko. So kanta means a quilt. So they gave up Tyaktva, they gave up, having given up everything. They Mandalavati, they were big shots. They gave it all up. Shrenim Sada Tuchava. Tuchava as insignificant. Bhutva, having become Bhutva Dina, lowly, wretched Dinas. Karunaya Kopina, out of mercy, out of compassion, Karunaya Kopina Kantashito. They simply wore a loincloth and a kanta, a torn quilt. So here Lord Chaitanya says, this is my mind, it's wearing this quilt, which is covered with dust and ashes. His only words are, alas, Krishna. Ha, Krishna. Ha, ha, Krishna. Pralapa uttara, crazy replies. Pralapa, lapa, speaking pralapa, crazy talk. He wears 12 bangles of distress on his wrist. I don't know why 12. And a turban of greed on his head, lover chula. Because he has not eaten anything, he is very thin. Bhiksha abhave, because of the absence of alms. Kshina kaleva, his kaleva, his body is kina, it's bony. Vyasa shuka dijogi gana Krishna atmani ranjana braje taram jatta vilagana Shri Jai Gauranga Daya Vitai Ki Bhagavatadi Shastra Gane Koriyache Varnane Shetarja Pade Anukana. The great yogi of my mind always studies the poetry and discussions of Lord Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. In Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, great saintly yogis like Vyasadeva and Shukadev Goswami have described Lord Krishna as the super soul beyond all material contamination. Okay. Let's see, Shetarja. That competition of poetry between two parties. Bhagavatadi Shastra-gane Koryashe Varnane. Krishna Atmaniranjana. Okay, Vyasa and Shuka. Yogi Gana. They are mystic yogis. So he's comparing his mind to a yogi, And then he's saying Vyasa, he's also a yogi. And Shuka, he's also a yogi. He's also, they're yogis, so we're all yogis. Bhagavata Adi, so Bhagavata refers to the Bhagavata, and Adi means beginning with. So Mahaprabhu was hearing and reading Bhagavatam, but he was also hearing and reading other works. It's mentioned he was hearing and or reading the Gita Govinda of Jayadev Goswami, which became extremely popular. It's said to be simple Sanskrit. It's Jayadev lived sometime before Lord Chaitanya, and it's said that he was from Odisha, so the Gita Govinda became very popular in Odisha, and it's chanted, it's sung, as I understand, in the Jagannath Mandir. It's also sung in the Jaipur Govindadev temple. At least a few verses of it. One time I was visiting the Govindadev temple one morning darshan, 7:30 maybe it was. And this is a very popular temple. It's I think especially fun time to go is in the morning for the morning darshan greeting, because the enthusiasm of the people to have darshan is so amazing. And these people, many of them are business people, they're on their way to work. They start their day by first going to the temple and having darshan. And after the curtain opened, everyone is, and then immediately people start singing, and sort of a cappella, there are no instruments, they just start singing in unison. And I was listening and wondering, what is that they're singing? And someone told me later it's verses from Gita Govinda. And it's like full-throated, you know, very sweet, devotional. Dashendriye Shishakari Mahabaula Namadari Shishalaya Korila Gaman Moradeha Shashadana Vishaya Boga Mahadana Vishaya Boga Mahadana Shabachari Gela Vrindavan. The mystic yogi of my mind has assumed the name Mahabaula and made disciples of his 10 senses. Thus my mind has gone to Vrindavan, leaving aside the home of my body and the great treasure of material enjoyment. So some days ago we spoke about Lord Chaitanya physically going to Vrindavan. Now he's going to Vrindavan in his mind. But what is his mind? His mind is a yogi. And his yogi mind has disciples. And what are the disciples? They're his 10 senses. And so, in effect, he's again going to Vrindavan, because what is the body? The body is composed of senses. But he's staying the whole time in Puri, and he's simply listening to these scriptures and remembering Krishna. It's referring here to the Baulas. The Baulas are sort of, well, they're considered by Bhaktivinoda Thakur as Appa Sampradaya. They're kind of village singers in, especially in Bengal, I guess also in Odisha, I don't know, Bengal, in Bangladesh. And they sort of go around singing devotional songs, but I think also romantic songs. So they're like in the West, the troubadours. You've heard of the troubadours? In the Middle Ages, these wandering musicians, they would go around and they would sing for the princess and inspire some donations, I guess. So these bowls are like that. So he says, I'm a yogi, but I'm also a bowel. Sort of wild. They're like people sort of on the edge of society, you could say. But they are appreciated for their music. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, even though he didn't like them in terms of sampradaya, he took some of their melodies and employed them in his songs. Oh, I see. Vrindavane prajagana jatastabara jangama vrikalata grihasta ashrame tarak hari vikatana halamulla patrashana e vritti kore shishya shane. In Vrindavan he goes, this yogi Baul goes from door to door begging alms with all his disciples. He begs from both the moving and the non-moving inhabitants, the citizens, the trees and the creepers. In this way he lives on fruits, roots and leaves. Palamula Patra Asana. So he's portraying himself. Of course, he himself, Lord Chaitanya, is a sannyasi, and the sannyasis are, their occupation, their means of maintenance, traditionally is begging. They go door to door. So but in Puri, Lord Chaitanya was much respected and he didn't have to go begging. He was supplied all that he needed. But in his mind, he wanted to be such a sort of homeless beggar in Vrindavan. That was the sort of ideal, the spirit of just being a homeless yogi, begging door to door from the householders, grihasta, ashrami, taraka. Vikka Artana, begging from door to door. Maybe a couple more. Krishna guna rupa rasa gandha shabda parashara she shuddha ashade gopigana ta shavara grashare grasso sheshe ani panchandriya shishe she vikhai rakena jivahana. The gopis of Vrindavan, the gopis of Brajavuni, always taste the nectar of Krishna's attributes, his beauty, his sweetness, his aroma, the sound of his flute and the touch of his body. My mind's 5 disciples, the senses of perception, gather the remnants of that nectar from the gopis and bring them to the yogi of my mind. The senses maintain their lives by eating those remnants. Nice. So he's extending this metaphor. There's another extended metaphor near the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapters 9, Adi Lila, 9, 10, 11, 12. They're describing the tree of Krishna Prema with Madhavendra Puri as the seed, the 9 sannyasis as the roots, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the trunk, the 2 main branches, Advaita and Nityananda, and then many sub-branches and sub-sub-branches, all the, as I mentioned, around 300 names mentioned altogether. So that's like and then out of this comes fruit, and what do you do with fruit? You can harvest it, and you can distribute it. So, and then Lord Chaitanya is the trunk, but he's also the gardener of this tree. So all of this is what you can call an extended metaphor. So now we have another extended metaphor, and this is the mind as a yogi with his disciples. And now we have these disciples going around begging, and what are they begging? They're getting the remnants of the experience of the gopis, of their association with Krishna, of the guna, the rupa rasa, guna rupa rasa, gandha shabda parasha. Parasha, this word comes from sparsha. Sparsha means touch, and somehow it gets kind of turned around and becomes parasha. So these yogis, disciples are going begging. They're receiving these remnants, and then they bring them, as the disciples should do with their begging. They bring what they've collected to their guru. So they're bringing what they've collected to their guru, who is the yogi, who is the mind. And so Mahaprabhu is saying, this is how I'm experiencing Vrindavan. So that's an interesting way of describing the yoga of meditation on Krishna. Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, that it's a very good idea to make the mind into a friend. Instead of an enemy. If we don't make it into a friend, it becomes an enemy. How to make it into a friend? Lord Chaitanya is making his mind into a yogi friend in this way. He's going to Vrindavan. Okay, one more verse. Shunya kunja mandap kone joga basa Krishna dane tahan rahe laya shishagana Krishna atma niranjana shakat takite mana dana ratri kore jagarana. There is a solitary garden where Krishna enjoys his pastimes. And in one corner of a pavilion in that garden, the yogi of my mind, along with his disciples, practices mystic yoga. Wanting to see Krishna directly, this yogi remains awake throughout the night, meditating on Krishna, who is the super soul, uncontaminated by the three modes of nature. I remember reading, so many years ago, I was curious about the practice of pranayama, and BKS Iyengar wrote a famous book, Light on Yoga, and another book, Light on Pranayama. So I was very excited. I got a copy of Light on Pranayama and started reading, and in the beginning of the book he explained, you want to practice this pranayama seriously, then you have to practice for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, 2 hours in the evening, and 2 hours at midnight. That's proper pranayama practice. That's about as far as I got with that book. So yeah, the serious yogis doing dhyana meditation, they're pretty much forgetting about sleep. But this yogi, says Lord Chaitanya, this yogi, my mind, it stays up at night, and what does it do? It goes in this garden where it's Krishna, and it's watching. It's awake throughout the night, meditating on Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I think we'll stop there for now. I had a kind of slightly busy day today, so I don't think I'm going to stay up all night. Okay. Good? Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
Swami Krishna Kshetra, Swami Maharaj ki
jai.